Our first visit to the Porsche factory was over 20 years ago. This time I stayed in the city center and took the S-Bahn to the new museum. It was just a 10-minute ride from the main Stuttgart train station to the museum stop, which is also called Porsche Platz. The local train drops you right at the museum entrance. This is the headquarters in Zuffenhausen, with the old museum and Reuter buildings in the background. Across the street is the large Porsche dealership that set the architectural design standard for dealers worldwide. And then you see the size of the Porsche Museum that sets a new standard for museums anywhere. From the ground floor, you take an escalator up almost 3 floors to the exhibits, which occupy over 60,000 square feet. The first thing you see is a hand-built replica of the aluminum chassis Type 64, which was built for the 1939 Berlin-Rome race that was canceled due to the outbreak of World War II. I started my walking tour at the Gamon Coupe and Cabriolet. Then on to a black Gamon Coupe and then a Roadster. The expanse of the museum opens up with an early Carrera. Then you go on to see that the Porsches are perfectly spaced and aligned. A 1960 Carrera GT highlights a row of breathtaking early 356s. This 911 prototype is the first in a series of design studies. This particular roof shape was vetoed by Ferry Porsche in favor of the now famous sloping roofline. This early 50s 356 SL, or Superlight, leads the display for Porsche racing classics. An early 911 Targa, 914, and an early 70s 911 line the wall. An inverted 962 gives a nice reference to view the expanse of the multi-floor display. It was eerie to see all of this 917 horsepower in a totally quiet and almost reverent environment. Looking over the rear spoiler of a Carrera GT, you can take in the openness of the museum. One of my personal favorites is the Paris to Dakar winning 959, followed by other racing legends. A 993 Polizei car is just in the background. The recent highly winning RS Spyder led a display including the 917 Spider, and a famous 550. Of course, the special display car in the museum is Porsche number 1 in the place of honor. And that followed by the 12-cylinder Systalia, which was built in 1946 while the senior Ferdinand Porsche was imprisoned by the French. The third car in this series is a 1950 VW. As we know, this was the car that was the basis of Porsche's evolutionary product development after the war. Even one of my early 356s had suspension parts with the VW stamp on them. The last time I saw number 1, she was across the street in the old museum. Back on the ground floor, behind the glass, is the classic department, where other museum cars are being restored and maintained for the rotating exhibits upstairs, as well as for traveling around the world. The display is just as interesting as what we just saw up on top. If you can get to the museum, plan on at least 2 to 3 hours. There are 2 restaurants and a snack bar inside. Reservations are required for dinner at the formal restaurant on the very top of the museum.